With us now from Whitefish, Montana, is Republican Congressman Ryan Zinke. Congressman, thank you and welcome. We got to start with those resignations at the Justice Department. These prosecutors who stepped aside these are not left-wing activists. These are not radicals. We're talking about lawyers who clerked for Edmund Scalia and John Roberts. Asking these prosecutors to drop the charges against Eric Adams does not look like depoliticizing the DOJ. This looks like politicizing it in the other direction. Why am I wrong about that, if I'm wrong about that?
Well, I think the priority would be immigration. You're right. They dropped the charges, and the charges were many. Although they can say, New York itself, the court system does not have credibility. After what they did with President Trump, you see the attacks. They're far outside justice. In this case, it's within the DOJ itself, resignations. But I think the big thrust is immigration. Look, New York is our largest city. It should be a shining city, and it's not. And a lot of it is the immigration. And look, you can't walk down the streets without being harassed. So something's got to change. The president looked at it, the priorities. He's got to work with New York. He found a willing partner. Let's make sure that the city gets cleaned up.
Now, I know this is maybe a little Pollyanna of me, but if the legal charges against Eric Adams were interfering with Eric Adams' ability to enforce the law on immigration, wouldn't the more obvious solution be for him to resign, for him not to be mayor anymore if this was getting in the way?
Well, you have a background, too, of politics, right? You have Como that's thinking about running for governor again or mayor. You have a background of politics. There is the prevailing thought that this was political at the very beginning. And, trying to muddle through a number of lawsuits, number of criminal allegations, would prevent him, likely from doing his job, or at least prevent him from doing it well. So there is that argument on the side. And then you're right. At the heart of it is this a tit for tat? I would say, look, clean up your city. Sanctuary city's over in New York, and be a willing partner. And to do that, well, we're here, aren't we? We had resignations. They thought the case had merit. Obviously, the Trump administration looked at it and said, you know what? What's more important right now is getting New York back to safety and getting the illegal immigration problem out of New York.
Okay. Your fellow Republicans look to you for a lot of guidance on international affairs, defense matters. You, former Navy SEAL and somebody who watches this stuff closely. The vice president and the new defense secretary made their debuts on the world stage in the previous week. But we did get some mixed messages on Ukraine. On Wednesday in Brussels, Secretary Pete Hegseth said he was ruling out NATO membership for Ukraine and said a return to its pre-invasion borders was unrealistic. Roger Wicker, the Armed Services Chairman in the Senate, called it a rookie mistake. Then they sort of walked it back. On Thursday, J.D. Vance in Paris said sending U.S. troops to Ukraine remained on the table, which sounded very different. This is a much different stance. Is this strategic ambiguity, or is this just ambiguity?
Well, some of it is a negotiation position. And what is the official U.S. position? Right now, it's the end of the war. My personal thoughts on the Crimean Peninsula is not going to be returned to Ukraine. It has been Russian territory for 800 years. It's their only freshwater port to the Mediterranean. So I don't think the Crimean Peninsula is going to move. The question of NATO, my thoughts are that Ukraine would have to do a significant political change to make sure that they're aligned with Western ideology when it comes to governmental policies and not an oligarchy. And they're just not ready yet. One is, I think the president said, let's stop the carnage. There's carnage on both sides. It can easily escalate. It can easily, Russia does have nuclear weapons. It certainly can throw a lot more force into it, albeit it's expensive. So I think the bottom line on this one is the Trump administration wants to end the war. And you know as well as I do how President Trump negotiates. He'll give you an array of options and try to outthink President Trump of what his real line is. It's a very difficult process. So I think he's got it out there. Pete Hegseth, I think, is realistic on it.
Thanks for watching.
Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.